was a knock at the door. This was rare. I remember it. This was rare back where we lived in Pennsylvania. Our neighborhood, no sidewalks, none of that, zero foot traffic. And I literally mean zero. No visitors, no elders from another church, no political canvassing during an election year, not even trick-or-treaters on Halloween. Deliveries would knock sometimes as a courtesy, but for them, I knew for whom the door knocked. It knocked for thee, if Kate had done the ordering, or me, depending, right? But nothing was ordered today. I was expecting neither visitors nor deliveries. Why was someone knocking at my door? I opened the door like you do to find out. I opened the door to find a door-to-door steak salesman. Now, this one's new for me, not like Swanson, not like the truck, not like the organization. Door-to-door steak salesman. And I've endured, maybe like you have, spiels about solar panels or pest extermination or the benefits in buying my holiday wrapping paper from the local elementary school. Representatives from various religions. They were frequently unannounced visitors growing up in California. And I'll tell you that not a single one of them was anywhere near as zealous as this guy now standing on my stoop, uninvited, slinging steaks on some particular Saturday. Now listen, I don't begrudge the door-to-door folks. I can't imagine that this guy is doing what he's always dreamed about growing up. I doubt he was voted most likely to sell unsolicited meat in his high school yearbook. Listen, I don't begrudge the folks door to door, but here's the thing. Full disclosure, I almost never want to buy what they're selling. I almost never want to buy, but I'd like to think that I'm not rude, so I let him talk. I let him get it all out of his system is my thinking. I'm giving those active listening symbols. Okay. All right, but it's not having the desired effect. Now, my nonverbal communication is pretty clear. My posture should have told him right away that no, friend, no, I do not want to buy meat from the trunk of your Toyota Corolla. But the captive audience, only served to provoke a Herculean feat of endurance. Because you'd think, right? You'd think that there's only so much you could say about unsolicited meat sold from the trunk of your car. Oh, I was wrong. Zealous like a convert, he testified, like some of those letters you read from Paul in the New Testament. All of us might have seen a period, but he just saw a comma. He kept going. He took a breath. I was impressed, honestly. Finally, though, I saw my opportunity. I jumped in. I said, listen, I told him I don't eat a lot of red meat. I didn't. I still don't. I told him that I wasn't his market audience. I wasn't. I'm still not. I told him I appreciated him coming by. I didn't. I still don't. And so I turned towards the door. My entire spirit, my entire energy, everything that I had to offer him was saying thanks, but no thanks. Oh, but you know, the meat was vacuum packed and sealed and flash frozen. He was very quick to point out, so it will be ready till when you decide to have a steak. And small families like mine were his target audience, he said. Right there in the trunk of his car, he had packages perfect for families of 2 adults like yours. Listen, I don't think that I need a reason not to buy unsolicited steaks door to door. But the salesman disagreed. It's a counterpoint. He's just looking out for small families like mine, he said. It was the reason he got into the unsolicited meat business, apparently. Bless his heart, I thought, oh gosh, this has gone on long enough. I interrupted his dismantling of the anti-red meat diet. His doctor said, oh, it's just fine. In fact, more the better. But he keeps going. Somehow, through context clues, he sussed out that right now it's just my wife and I. Zoe not yet born yet. So he mentions my wife. He says, listen, don't you like to spoil her sometimes and throw some steaks on the grill just to surprise her? And I thought, all right, time to end this. Well, that would be a surprise for her, I said. My wife, she's, vegetarian. Kate has been vegetarian for most of her life. She started in her teens, unwavering ever since. She's never eaten meat intentionally since then. So friend, if I did in fact grill up some steaks for Kate and I, it certainly would be a surprise. And the only thing I would be spoiling would be that second steak because, as I mentioned, she is a vegetarian. Ha-ha. Checkmate. Or so I thought. Straight-faced. He looked at me and said, sir, perhaps these might be the steaks to change her mind. I had my reasons, right? Good reasons. Listen, I don't care who you are. I do not buy steaks for vegetarians. Listen, I hear good reasons all the time. So do you. Reasons to do something, not to do something. I live with an 8-year-old. I know all kinds of good reasons. Every nominating committee chair at a church somewhere will tell you that when members of the churches like ours are asked to serve as elders or deacons for the 3-year term, many say yes. But almost nobody just says, nope. Almost nobody replies with just, no thanks, and then leaves it at that. They've got meetings, and they conflict with my kids' soccer games, they'll say, or the work makes me nervous, I've never done it before, or that they help take care of their parents, or that their schedule is unreliable, or that, listen, I'll be retired soon, but just now's not a good time. I trust that members who are asked to serve understand that this is how we are church together. That representatives from among you, from among the congregation, leading this congregation, that's what makes us Presbyterian. Presbyterian meaning presbyter Greek for elder. The difference between the nominating committee member calling to follow up the letter to the prospective elder or deacon, well, it differs from the steak salesman because the church knows, unlike this guy, that life gives you lots of good reasons to say no. And when it comes to work at the church, today's no, we believe, is not ever, no way, but just not now. But here's the thing, right? In order for the church to be the church, for the church to be this church, we need folks to say what? Kevin, nominating committee chair, what do we need him to say? Kevin. Kevin's like, it's not ever, but just not now, Brett. I'm not going to participate. Thank you, Kevin. But Kevin knows, I know. Anybody here who's ever been a nominating chair knows that we need yeses. Yes to becoming elders or deacons. Yes to becoming a member of the team or the committee. Yes to showing up. Yes to giving time and talent and financially. Stay tuned. Yes. It may not be you here now today, but you know, right? We can't be the church if nobody ever says yes. The church, the world, you, all of us, we're all interdependent. We all need each other. It's always been this way, right? It will always be this way. It will forever stay this way. It's the opposite to imagine is too terrible to even consider. We need each other, right? God now needs Moses. Go back to Egypt. Go back to Pharaoh. Go back among the Hebrews, now toiling away there. The Lord God has heard, has seen their suffering. The Lord your God is able to break their chains. The Lord your God, the great I am, will begin a new chapter in the life of an entire people. And the Hebrews in Egypt don't really know all that much about the God who's now speaking to Moses, who calls Moses to now go back to Egypt and Pharaoh. Go speak to power. Go speak to his people. This is where famously Moses asks for God's name. Tell me what to call you when I talk to them, because they have no idea who calls them out to freedom from Egypt. The God who makes promises, as I mentioned, the God we've been looking at for these last couple of weeks is the God who makes promises to 100-year-olds, and precisely them, that they will be new parents. And the God who makes promises to liars and cheaters is today the God who hinges a people's future on the verb to speak. You know the hymn, right? Go down, Moses. And you go way down to Pharaoh's land. Is it tell old Pharaoh what? Let my people go. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. God tells Moses, thus you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. The God who makes promises is the God who calls Moses, the God who tells Moses to speak these words of liberation, to raise his voice, to speak disagreeable words to power, and like those 100-year-old soon-to-be parents, like Moses has done and now connects with Moses, and as Moses connects with Moses, this is going well. Excuse me. And like those 100-year-old soon-to-be parents, Abraham and Sarah before him, Moses has a very good reason why God has made yet another laughable request. Like the lying, cheating, seeming trickster Jacob, there is a really good reason now here why Moses should not be the one. Abraham, Sarah, Jacob all had good reasons. Moses does too. God wants Moses to speak, and Moses has a speech disability, we read. Send someone else, he says. It shouldn't be me. What does it say about God, friends? That the divine almighty voice among the people will speak from a position, will speak from a disability. What does it say about God that the divine almighty is unwavering in commitment to Moses and simultaneously appoints his brother Aaron to speak so Moses can be heard? What does it tell you about the creator God, the God who hangs the moon and stars, that this God depends on Moses and all the Moseses that believe less and less in themselves when they compare themselves to others? Over again in our passages in our book, in Exodus, Moses shares and speaks frankly about his speech disability. In our reading today, I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue. Twice in chapter 6, he says identical things. And God only becomes more resolute. Exodus 7, verse 1, Moses will speak for God before the throne of Egypt. Friends, the promise that God makes today is the promise to you of interdependence. The call of Moses is unwavering. The reality of Moses' life is unchanged. His is a good reason. It is a good reason not to be the one to speak for God before Pharaoh. And I don't read our passages today, do not read our passages today as though the Almighty is simply just brushing it off and discounting it and dismissing it and saying, you'll be fine. Especially compared to God's power. Friends, what I see in today's reading is the God whose every promise to Moses is a promise of empathy. It's a promise anchored in relationship. What I read here today, friends, is that the God who makes promises to Moses and all the Moseses in the world is the God who speaks most readily, is the God who speaks most often, not in that booming voice that shakes the trees. But where do we hear God's voice most readily? Through the voices of each other. Through prophets. Maybe to put it another way. Most often, God appoints prophets to speak to God's people just as God appoints Aaron to speak for Moses. The promises of God are for the people of God. People, every one of you, said to have the imago Dei, the image of God, knit into your very bones, stitching together who and whose you are. So I wonder, friends, could it be the majesty found in the diversity of human life, where we hear the fullest expression of God's voice? The fullest, deepest, most real manifestation of God's words of freedom and liberty are spoken not out of booming clouds, or not even read off of a page, but God and God's voice. God and God's promises, they reach their loudest, their apex, their strongest, their clearest, their most liberating when they come up out of the imago Dei, when they're said in your voice, and when the God who appoints prophets and those to speak for each other lifts their voice in and through Moses' good reason, and not in spite of it. I think what our passage is telling us today, friends, is that God promises to be with us in the diversity, the beauty of us. And through you, God speaks. God's voice is most readily heard to your friends and your family and your coworkers, not through the rattling of the hills, but through what it sounds like to be in a relationship with you. You, me, each other. The God who appoints prophets promises to speak through us. It's at its loudest when we do.